Hey everyone, I'm Cosmic and welcome to the Cloud. It's only been a few days since my previous video breaking down the Splatoon Raiders gameplay trailer. Since then, not only has Nintendo posted some more info on Twitter, but I've also just been thinking a lot about the game and I realized I had some more things to say. So let's get into it. First of all, I'd like to start with some stuff I sort of glazed over in the last video. After the Raiders reveal back in June, one of my biggest hopes was for the game to feature more fully realized environments, fleshed out areas that actually felt like a part of Splatoon's world rather than just video game levels. And it seems like, generally, this is a wish that actually came true. The more we see of this game, the more I'm coming to appreciate just how much detail there is in every environment, and how much it feels like the developers are really trying to build this sense of immersion that just wasn't achievable with their previous design philosophy. I'm sure a large reason for this, as we speculated, is that this is its own game, and not just a side mode to a multiplayer Splatoon experience. All of the resources that may have otherwise gone into designing PvP maps and hubs can now be used to make unique level terrain and assets that make the world feel more organic and lived in. Now, we have seen some areas that are definitely more blocky and video gamey. The underground dungeons seem to look closer to what we're used to seeing in Splatoon levels, but even here, the terrain fits in pretty well with the background environments. Alterna and Side Order both leaned into this kind of washed out, frozen in time aesthetic, which was sometimes leveraged well to create genuinely beautiful and detailed backgrounds, but often felt frankly bland and underwhelming compared to Splatoon 1 and 2's single-player art direction. So to see so much color and texture in Raiders levels is super refreshing and exactly what I was hoping for. However, in my last video, I did express some concern over how flat these areas seemed, and while I figure that was likely just going to be the case for the early parts of the game, Nintendo went ahead and showed off some other parts of the overworld on Twitter and removed pretty much any doubt from my mind. This lava zone looks massive. The sense of verticality and scale is almost unlike anything we've seen in Splatoon and has me incredibly excited for island exploration. Speaking of Twitter screenshots, you have no idea how happy I was to see this. To start, this environment looks incredible. You can definitely still tell it's a game level, but there's so much more of a sense of place and purpose than anything we saw in Splatoon 3. The water under the level isn't just there to be a video game obstacle, it's there because we're in a giant sewer tunnel. There's a rocky exterior, a metal frame to protect the tunnel from collapse, and rusted pipes lining the walls. There are insulated wires strung up by metal hooks, powering tiny lights, and a little maintenance platform off to the side. This kind of naturalistic design is really rare for Splatoon single player, and while Side Order did incorporate some environmental details, it was very abstract and virtual, which made sense, but personally, I love when Splatoon takes this more realistic approach in designing the details of its world. In my Hopes for Splatoon Raiders video, I mentioned the abandoned station from Octo Expansion being one of my favorite locations in the Splatoon series for this reason, and this stage is genuinely reaching that level of polish. Beyond just the visuals, in my last video I also lamented the lack of platforming challenges, as I was worried a game full of just salmonid combat would start to feel stale and monotonous. Well, lo and behold, platforming. This seems to be an obstacle course style challenge, just like I was asking for. Specifically, I've seen some people speculate that this might be a mission based around riding on Big Man, an ability we caught a glimpse of in Tuesday's trailer. There are these item pickups placed around the stage, which would likely refresh the time limit on the ability, allowing us to continue surfing on Big Man while jumping through squid rings. Regardless of whether or not that's actually what this level will entail, the precedent is set that yes, dungeons can consist of either combat trials or challenges based around movement and platforming. This fact alone massively expands the scope of Raiders gameplay, allowing it to not only be a fusion between Salmon Run and Side Order, as previously suspected, but also taking notes from other Splatoon single players, like Octo Expansion, all while maybe looking the best out of any of them. It's actually insane how much this single screenshot has done for my perception of the game. I don't want to get myself too excited, of course, but I truly love what we're being shown here. One last thing I want to cover is what could potentially be another story hint. The North American Splatoon Twitter posted a tweet with this caption: We found these spiralite islands to be surprisingly vast and diverse, consisting of many different biomes and even having an expansive underground. There are some traces of civilization as well. Could it have something to do with the Salmonids? That last line is somewhat suspicious, but still just seems to be hinting at Salmonid lore, right? Well, the Japanese account, as well as Nintendo of Europe, worded the sentence differently, instead asking, but was this civilization built by the Salmonids? This isn't even the only reason we have to believe there might be some third party involved. Near the start of the trailer, we see a brief shot of the exploration robot, seemingly before it was discovered by Deep Cut. This would imply that, rather than the mechanic building the robot from scratch, it was left behind by someone else exploring the islands. It doesn't seem to me like something the Salmonids would have used, and it appears to be just the right size for an Inkling or Octoling. What this means for the story is anyone's guess, but it definitely seems like this setting has more going on than just Deep Cut and the Salmonids. There may even be yet another underground civilization, separate from Salmonid society, that makes up the subterranean dungeons. It could have belonged to the humans, the Octarians, or some other group entirely. With that said, while talking about raiders on my community Discord server, I was made aware of this image extracted from the Japanese Raiders website. This effectively gives us a look at the background environment from the game's box art without the characters blocking our view. Most notably, we can see sculptures resembling sporks as well as several massive pipes. Some of them are curved, almost like a water slide, and there's a large basin at the top. This structure is similar to one seen in another Twitter screenshot that looks like a massive sink towering above these spongy mangroves. There have been multiple Octarian-related environments containing massive pipes, for example, the arenas for the Octomaw and Octoshower fights. However, the sporks are obviously more salmonid-coded, and the fact that the pipes look like water slides reminds me of those real-life salmon cannons that are used to send salmon upstream in places where dams have been built. Interestingly, this structure appears to be located underground, in a dungeon, while the giant sink is on the surface. That means, if some other civilization is involved, there won't necessarily be a clear line drawn between their stuff and Salmonid stuff. It's possible this other group was here first, and only in more recent times did the Salmonids take over, but it's hard to say for sure. Also, this is probably kind of obvious, but the relics we collect throughout the game will have descriptions, and apparently 3D models that we can freely rotate. I wouldn't be surprised if these are effectively the sunken scrolls of this game, which is pretty cool. I'm still iffy about the premise of stealing artifacts from the Salmonids, but these relics should allow us to learn a lot more about their history, so in that sense it could be a good thing for Salmonid lore. The descriptions could also be a way to give the mechanics some characterization, with them providing their own thoughts on each artifact, though the one example we've been given sounds a lot more like generic narration. And that'll do it for this one. A much shorter video than my usual, but I really just wanted to cover these extra pieces of info we were given and quickly provide some of my thoughts. From the final tweet posted as of this video, it sounds like we aren't getting more news for a while, most likely a general Nintendo Direct sometime in June. So this is what we've got to work with for now. Thanks for watching. I'm curious to hear any updated thoughts you all might have in the comments, but until next time, this has been Cosmic. Farewell.